Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, maybe even good evening or good morning, wherever you may be. My name is Dawna Levenson. I have the privilege of being one of two assistant deans at MIT Sloan in admissions, and I am very excited to connect with all of you today to talk a little bit about early career programs or opportunities. And we actually have quite a bit to say. I'm assuming that those of you in the audience are perhaps college students, maybe entering your senior year or even your junior year or earlier if you want, and you're thinking about what's next and what lies ahead. And the good news is, as I said, we actually have a lot to offer and a lot for you to consider. So I want to begin though with just talking a little bit about our school and what makes me really so very proud to be connected to MIT Sloan. We are a mission-driven school, and our mission, as you can see here, is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and who generate advanced ideas and advanced management practices. And I think we're probably all in agreement that at this very point in time, the world could use an awful lot of improving. In fact, I think it's worth noting that with the ontake of the pandemic and what has been happening in the world, as you can imagine, MIT faculty, MIT staff, MIT students have been very quick to jump in and try to help in any way they possibly can. We have a group of faculty who last spring immediately got together and developed the COVID-19 Policy Alliance, which is a group of faculty who really develop data-driven practical recommendations that they are providing to governments and helping them make decisions all over the country. We have other faculty who are in our finance department who focus more on helping small businesses stay afloat. We also have a group of students who got together last spring, and some 40 students pulled off a global virtual hackathon in less than 2 weeks with the impact of COVID-19 on Africa. And so you can see, and this is a small sampling of the different activities that have taken place either on campus or throughout the world with our students, our faculty, and our alum, really focused on COVID-19 and the pandemic. And this is not a fluke. This is what MIT is about. This is who we are about as a community. And what I'm hoping is that this type of engagement and action resonates with each and every one of you. Okay, so we have a portfolio of programs, and our programs really range in terms, if you look at from experience level, people who, like many of yourselves, are going to be just out of school, all the way through people who have 25 plus years of work experience. The focus of our conversation today is really on the early stage professionals, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about our Master of Finance program, our Master's in Business Analytics program, and our opportunity to apply and be accepted to our 2-year MBA program early, which is our deferred admissions program. I do have to give one caveat. I have my dog is here with me, and he somehow picks the perfect times to chat with me, which is while I'm on a presentation just like this. So I want to apologize in advance. For all of our programs, we understand that the net result of many of these is in fact to better position you all for rewarding careers. And so in order to provide that for you, we are going, the experience at MIT Sloan would be one that is really rigorous with an in-depth curriculum. We have many what we call action learning labs, hands-on action learning experiences. You're going to be taught by world-renowned faculty, and as an MIT Sloan student, you're also an MIT student, and you have access to a wide range of resources throughout the Institute. The MIT experience itself is one that is life-changing. Our students come from all over the world in all of our programs. They are incredibly collaborative and supportive of one another. When you think about your MIT Sloan experience, you should think of it not just as what you're doing in the classroom, but also all of the activities outside of the classroom. We have a variety of clubs in any given year. There's anywhere between 60 and 70 clubs, depending really on the interests of our students. We have forums. We have all kinds of different events, as you can see from this slide here. Also, as an MIT Sloan student, you also immediately will become part of this incredible alumni network all over the world, which is the MIT alumni network is 139,000 strong. The MIT Sloan alumni network is 24,000 strong. And these are clubs that take on a variety of different roles, hosting all kinds of activities, really depending again on the interest of the local community. But what you can see here, which is so interesting, is that companies that are currently active companies that have some sort of connection to MIT, there are over 30,000. Those 30,000 companies have created over 4.6 million jobs and generate over $2 trillion in revenue. If you were to add all that up and put a flag on it and say this is a nation, MIT nation, it would be either the 10th or 11th largest economy in the world. Very impactful there. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the three programs that I mentioned, Master of Finance, Masters of Business Analytics, and the option for MBA early admissions. Our Master of Business Analytics program is a 12-month program where you do a deep dive into data science. In fact, prior to this, I just welcomed our 5th business analytics class here. It is a class of 63. And it is, so we're saying here target of 60 roughly. We have 63 students from all over the world joining us this year in our 6th class. This program, one of the things that makes it so unique is that it is a partnership between MIT Sloan and our Operations Research Center. So even though it's a relatively younger program, it has the deep history and roots and experience of our Operations Research Center. The academic experience is very intense. As you can see, it looks like this. I'm not going to drain these slides at all because I really want to take time for questions. But I think just looking at this, you can see how packed it really is. And one of the key elements of this is the capstone project that you see here in the middle of the slide. This is working in a 2-man team working on a real project for a real company. The setup for this begins as early as February, but the bulk of the work you're doing is actually that final summer in the June, July, August timeframe. Master of Finance program. It's an 18-month program with a 12-month fast track. It has a very flexible curriculum, so there's a core set of classes that you need to take, but then there's opportunities to take lots of electives to really shape this in the direction that you want to go. It is a deep dive into quantitative finance, but you can see here in terms of concentrations, you could focus on capital markets or corporate finance or financial engineering. The MFin academic experience looks something like this, where regardless of whether or not you're doing the 12 or the 18 months, everybody is starting in the July timeframe. Everybody spends a summer together and then a fall and a spring. For those doing the 18-month option, you then spend the next summer doing an internship in your field and you come back for another fall semester. Our MBA program. So our MBA program is in fact our traditional 2-year MBA program. And what the early admissions offering does is provide you the opportunity to plan ahead. That as a college senior, or in fact, as a grad student who has not yet worked full-time, you can apply to the 2-year MBA program, get admitted, to then come and join us in the next 2 to 5 years. So the commitment by you is to go out and work for 2 to 5 years. Which, think about that. You're graduating from school. You're not quite sure maybe what you want, what your future holds, and yet you know that you have a committed seat in our MBA program. Our MBA program also has dual degrees with our School of Engineering, which is our Leaders for Global Operations, our Department of Urban Planning, as well as the Harvard Kennedy School. At this point in time, the early admissions offering is really only focused on the 2-year MBA. However, to the extent that you want to do one of these other programs, in particular the LGO program, we're developing sort of a fast track to help you apply and get into the engineering aspect of that, given that you've already been admitted to our program. So that's really a stay tuned. So I think I already talked a little bit about this. Is an MBA in your next 5-year plan? This provides you with a guaranteed spot in our MBA program. And the truth is, you are actually a better test taker now than you would be in the future. However, I do need to caveat that a little bit, that given what is going on with regard to the pandemic, the test taking, whether it be GMAT or GRE, is not as accessible as it has been in other situations. And therefore, we are, at this point in time, allowing you to apply without the exam, but would ask you to take the exam and achieve a certain minimum score at a later date. For those of you who may not be familiar with our MBA, 2-year MBA, this is a look at the first-year curriculum, whereas we have a 1-semester core. The month of January is spent with the rest of the MIT community during the independence activity period. And then that spring, as well as the next fall and spring, are all electives. If you have an interest in entrepreneurship or enterprise management or finance, you could take one of 3 tracks that are specific to our MBAs. If you're interested in analytics or healthcare or sustainability, you could do one of 3 certificates. The difference between tracks and certificates is, I think a significant difference would be that certificates are open up to not just the MIT Sloan community, but to the entire MIT community, where the 3 tracks have really been developed specifically for MBAs. Also, the tracks and certificates have been designed in such a way that you could actually do one of each if you're interested. So imagine you being interested in finance and you want to apply that to the world of healthcare. Something that you absolutely do not have to commit to now, but as you're thinking about what an MBA might be like, it's good to know that you have these options. Regardless of the program that you choose, you will be taught by world-renowned faculty who are experts in their field and who care so much about our students. Something that's really important to note, our faculty are really, they're teaching at MIT Sloan because they want to get to know our students. They make themselves available to our students. And when you talk to other students, I think they will highlight how this is such a differentiator for them. And these are relationships that don't necessarily end when the program ends. We'll have alums talk about, them running into a problem at work and reaching out to a faculty member and asking them how they might handle a situation. And not only do the faculty respond, but they respond with a willingness to help out. I've talked a little bit about action learning, but I think it's good to talk about it here. This is really a key aspect of our academic teaching philosophies, whereas the hands-on part on studying something and then applying it in real time with real companies is a way to go. And each one of our programs interprets that slightly differently. For business analytics, it's the 6-month capstone project. For Master of Finance, you're required to take one of our finance labs, whether it be in the fall as a pro seminar or in January as the finance research practicum. And then for MBA, while it's not a requirement, this is so interesting. For the MBA, it is not a requirement to take one of our labs. The majority of our students take at least one. If you choose to do a track or certificate, within each of those is usually a specific lab that you could have to take. On the MBA side, these labs range from, there's the Global G Lab, which is Global Entrepreneurship Lab. There's a Sustainability Lab, a Healthcare Lab, an Analytics Lab, an Operations Lab. There's also geographic labs like China Lab, India Lab, USA Lab, and Israel Lab. So there are many, many different lab classes that you can take. I talked a little bit about careers from beginning, but I think it's also important to wind up with that as well. Our career development office really works very hard with each of you to help prepare you for successful job seeking opportunities. And so it's not just about that first job out of school or that summer internship, but it's about a lifetime of opportunities and career growth. They provide you with early online access to a lot of their resources. They have career fairs and treks. Each of our programs has a career core built into either orientation or the first semester. They work with companies to provide on-campus recruiting activities, and they certainly facilitate networking with both employers and alums. As you can see, a few highlights for each of the program: Masters of Business Analytics. 100% of students received full-time offers at graduation. You can see here a variety of different job titles and company names that I'm assuming are familiar to each and every one of you. On the Master of Finance front, 99% of our students received full-time offers by 6 months post-graduation. 72% offers in the United States. Oh, one thing that I did not mention is all 3 of these programs are STEM certified. I wonder if I missed that. And what that means for those of you who may be international is that you are then able to work in the US. It extends your OPT time frame to 3 years from 1 year. For what it does though for everybody is, I think it's a testament just how rigorous each one of our programs are. So here for Master of Finance is a variety of different job types that people go into, the different job titles, and you can see it really, the range is significant, and it's very much driven by students' interests. And then you can see here a lot of, again, very familiar company names. And then on the MBA front, you can see again some very familiar names. Our students, the top industries they go into are consulting, tech, and finance. 6.7% of them started a business right out of school, but then if you go 3 years out, that number jumps significantly. All right, so how do you get into one of these programs? So for the Master of Finance and Business Analytics, there's a lot of commonality in the application itself, although we look for different things. So both of them will require you to submit a resume, an essay or short questions, 3 letters of recommendations, 2 of them academic and 1 professional. Excuse me. If you're coming straight from school, and 2 professional and 1 academic, if for these programs you may have worked for a little bit. GMAT or GRE, as I mentioned, we're being a little bit flexible with that this year. Similarly with the TOEFL or the IELTS for those of you for whom English is not your native language. And then we have 2 video questions. One of them is an on-the-spot question that you get out of a random bank of questions. And the second one is we want you to introduce yourself to your future classmates. For all of our programs, an interview is by invitation only, and it's a required next step in the process, and it is a face-to-face interview. Until the spring, the majority of them were done in person. We traveled the globe starting this past spring. They have now been done via Skype. We may be doing Zoom, but it will be virtual at least for the fall, and we'll have to see what happens next spring. And if you're invited for an interview, there's a chance we may ask you to submit additional materials. There's also a chance, as we've done in the past for the Master of Finance, that we may administer a small quant exam at the end of the interview. So, but we let you know. There's no surprise. We are not big fans of surprises at all, as you will find. I did not realize my head was cut off. I'm sorry. As you will find, we pretty much lay out for you what the exact process is going to be as soon as we finalize things like requiring additional materials. We will definitely let you know all of that. And then for the MBA, application deadline is next spring, April 20th. We ask for resume, cover letter, 2 letters of recommendation, transcripts, GMAT or GRE, and a single video statement. And once again, interviews are required, next step in the process. All right. I covered a lot of material in a relatively short period of time because we really wanted the opportunity to take your questions. But as you can see here, there's many ways for you to stay connected with us. And I think, and we encourage you to do so. And if what you're hearing today is of interest to you, there's many other ways that you can connect and stay engaged. But given the size of the participant pool, I think I'm going to stop my screen share so we can see everybody and you can ask questions of myself. I also forgot to introduce my 2 colleagues who are working with me right now. Tommaso Canetta and Keon Ellis are both here with me as well. And so I think I'm going to stop my screen share. And I think the 3 of us can take questions. Tommaso, do we have questions?
Yes, so just have 1 question so far. So for everyone joining in, please feel free to type in your questions using the Q&A function. You can also upvote questions that others have asked if they're similar to yours. But the first question from Alex about the MBA early admission program and whether it's reviewed on a rolling basis.
No. For the most part, none of our programs have rolling admissions. We set deadlines, and in fact, truth be told, we do not review applications until the deadline. So there might be personal benefit for getting an application in early for any of our programs because you're relieved and you're done with it. But from our standpoint, we review them once the application deadline has passed.
Great. There's another question from Diana here. I'm curious if the MBA early admission applicants are allowed to apply in round 1 or round 2, and would it be possible to apply for deferred admission without the test scores? So I think you mentioned that. But.
Yep. So for MBA, for early admissions, we do have 2 rounds. Round 1 is MIT students only. Whether you're an MIT undergrad or perhaps an MIT grad student. Round 2, which is the April date that we posted, is everybody, and MIT students are welcome to apply as well. And we're really watching what's happening with the testing facilities very closely, and we're going to do, we may change what we do because we want to be realistic and fair. I can tell you what we did this past year was because if you think about it, late last spring, testing centers pretty much shut down and people weren't able to, they did not have access to tests. And so what we did is allowed people for MBA early to apply without a test score. We assessed them. We actually admitted people, but it was conditional, and we gave them a minimum GMAT or GRE score that they have to achieve at a later date. And so, you have a little bit of time because the earliest that you can actually attend the program will be 2 years out. And so we'll watch this very, very closely. We're in very close contact with GMAC in particular. And so we're getting a better understanding of exactly what it's going to look like in terms of the opening up of test centers in person, as well as they're continuing to offer the online version of exams.
So Dawna, just a quick different interpretation on this question. Can MBA early applicants apply during round 1 and round 2 of the MBA deadlines? Like, could they also be considered among the MBA? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you're more than welcome to apply to the 2-year MBA. Our 2-year MBAs have on average 5 years of experience. So you'd be applying straight out of school without any work experience. And let me say something about that. So it's an interesting question that we get because there are people and there are schools for whom, their work experience is not necessarily something that's really expected or built into their MBA curriculum. From our standpoint, we really do design our program and have an expectation that students come into the classroom with some level of experience. Now, having said that, there is, and Tommaso and Keon can back me up on this, there is nowhere on our application that we check a box that says this person has X number of years of work experience. Yet, for the traditional 2-year MBA admissions process, We do have certain expectations around evidence of certain qualities that we are looking for, like leadership skills, that usually requires somebody to have a minimum of 2 years of experience to be able to truly demonstrate that. When we are assessing people through the MBA early process, well, we may be looking for evidence of the same qualities. We're actually adjusting where we may be looking for evidence of that, as well as the quantity of evidence that we're looking for. And so we're making an adjustment for when we're evaluating you through MBA early. I hope that makes sense. Tommaso, feel free to jump in if that, you know what I'm trying to say. So if there's a better way to say it, please feel free.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So our next question is, if you, a little bit along the lines of that, if you have 3.5 years of working experience, could you still apply for MBA early admissions?
No. So we make it very clear. The intent of the MBA early admissions, for people to qualify, you cannot have worked full-time. So the majority of our applicants are coming straight from undergrad. We also, though, have applicants who come from graduate school, but you could not have worked. You could not have done your undergrad, go and work for 3 years, and then go to graduate school and think, now I can apply for MBA early.
Great, thank you. So in the similar theme of work experience, but now talking about the Master of Finance program,
Yep.
Is there a limit on the amount of work experience you can have to apply into the MFin?
So that's a great question. The reality is this program is very much targeted at early stage professionals. The majority, in terms of absolute number of our students in the MFin program, come straight from undergrad. I think it's around 70%. And so 30% of our students do have some work experience, and that hovers around the 2 to maybe 3 years of experience. And I have to be honest, it's as much about employer expectations on the other end when they're interviewing people as it is anything else. That employers are, and the types of positions that employers are recruiting for, they don't expect our MFin students to have 5 to 10 years of experience.
Actually wanted to follow up on our previous question. I misread it or misunderstood it, so I apologize for that.
No.
If they're completing their undergraduate degree in 3.5 years, or less than 4 years, an accelerated complete, would they still be?
Oh, that's fine. Sure.
Great.
Also,
Questions about the MFin start date. So notice it starts in the summer. So if a student is graduating in August, would they still be eligible to apply, and how?
No, so actually no. So MFin program starts usually July 1st. We've been pretty religious about that, and and the summer term is a full term that is required. And so if you're graduating in August, unfortunately, that would require you to matriculate the following July.
Alex has a question about financial aid. Great question. What offerings are available around financial aid when you apply to either or any of these programs?
Okay, a great question. So for MBA, for those of you applying to the MBA early, we do not assess, we do not offer fellowship at that point in time. You will be reviewed for fellowship with the class of students the year that you actually tell us you're going to matriculate. So this is what happens for MBA early. You get in, you give us a deposit, and then you go off and you start your job. And every summer, we're going to reach out to you and say, hi, is this the year that you want, that the next year, is this the year that you're going to want to matriculate? And if it is, you're actually going to have a call with someone like Kayon, or perhaps exactly Kayon. And we're going to, talk to you about what you've done the past couple of years and just make sure that everyone's comfortable that this is the right year for you to matriculate. And it's actually a year off because you're going to be doing it in the fall, and it would be for the following fall. Once you give us that signal, you will then be assessed with the pool of students admitted for that coming year in terms of any type of fellowship. On the MBA side, we do give fellowship to a little over a third of our class. It is merit-based. There are no additional requirements for you to fill out any additional forms for us. But again, it's at the time of the year that you're matriculating, not the year that you admitted to MBA early. For both MFin and business analytics, we do have a limited number of merit-based fellowships that we do give to incoming students. Again, no additional requirements in terms of filling out any forms. All students are considered for them.
So
Great.
Dawna, I have a quick question about work experience. Giaru has a question about their undergraduate program that allows students to work for 12 months while being a student. And for the student who is graduating early, say in December, and might be starting a job in January, how is that viewed in the process?
Yep, so those are both okay. So if someone graduates in December of a given year and wants to apply to MBA early that next spring and has started a job, you qualify to apply for MBA early. And for the student who perhaps is a part of a co-op program or some other program that is part of the program you're working full-time, that is also okay. That does not disqualify you from applying to MBA early.
Great. In a similar vein, how about working in family business? Would that count as work experience?
You mean part-time while you were still in school?
I'm not sure, they didn't specify in the question. I think.
So if you worked, if you worked part-time for your family business while you were continuing to go to school, then that's fine. If you graduated and then you worked for the family business for 2 years, that's not okay. The family business to me is not a distinguishing factor.
Right. Okay, good. Shifting gears a little bit, question about disclosing learning disabilities on the application and whether that's something that an applicant should do or can do.
It is, so we do not specifically ask this question. If it is something that you want to share with us, you are more than welcome to do so. Whether it be in the application, whether it be at the time of your interview, whether it be in an additional email that you send that you want us to add to your file.
Great. Lucas has a question about having done different exchange semesters during undergraduate, so have lots of different transcripts with different grading systems and how to calculate an overall GPA.
Yeah, so I think, that we're asking for your GPA and what scale your GPA is on. So if it's a 4.0 or like for MIT, it's a 5.0, we want to know that. I think if you have a mix, what I might suggest, and I just thinking off the top of off the cuff here, is to either, I think the best is to probably provide us the GPA from your host university from whom you received your degree, and perhaps let us know that it does not include classes that were taken while on a semester abroad. Tommaso agrees with me, I can say. He's shaking his head.
I think it's important to note that we're not considering just the overall GPA, but of course looking at the individual courses and individual grades in those courses.
Right.
So we will go.
And we want to see those. We want to see transcripts from schools that when you might have traveled.
Great. So there's just a follow-up on a previous question about graduating in August and MFin, if they're completed all of their credit and course requirements, but the degree will not be conferred until.
Yep, that's different. Yep, we actually have had situations like that. Great. So can I say one other thing though on that topic? I think these are all great questions, and I think people have like personal situations, and we are here really to connect with you on your own personal situation. So I encourage you to reach out to us. We have specific, I showed you email addresses for each of the programs. We are happy to have a call with you. One of our admissions advisors would be happy to have a call with one of you. If you think a unique or specific situation and you just want to early on determine whether or not perhaps that is something that disqualifies you or not, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Great. So it looks like we've answered all of the questions in the Q&A at this point. We'll maybe just give it a minute if anyone has any additional questions that they do want to share. I will share just to build on Dawna's point that we will have plenty more events as well as we move through the next couple of weeks and months. Of course, virtual events, but opportunities to connect not just with the admissions team, but also with our students and our alumni, and as well as some different topical webinars around the student experience and different areas. So for example, next week we'll have a session on social impact and sustainability. So if you have interests in attending these future events, please do join us. And looks like we spurred some additional questions. So
Good.
we'll
I like
go
the
back
question.
to the Q&A.
Yep.
All right. So, with MBA early, since you don't have much work experience, how do you assess an application? What are the qualities that you're looking for in an applicant to the MBA early admissions?
Yep. So it's a couple of things. One is, as I mentioned, and I really like this a lot. We are actually looking for the same set of, we call them competencies, that we are looking for in our 2-year MBAs, recognizing that A, we may find them in other places, and B, the quantity of them may be somewhat less. And a couple of examples. A couple of qualities that we really, really value. One of them is around relationship building. When you join our community, so much of the work that you do is in a team, and to be able to really assess how well you work in a team setting and with other people and building meaningful relationships. So you can imagine that for somebody coming out of undergrad, there's actually lots of ways that we can find evidence of that, whether it be through clubs that you are involved in as an undergrad, or different student interest groups, or perhaps playing a sport. There's a lot of different ways to us to really be able to assess that. The other is, people who are really goal driven. So defining and setting goals. Again, so perhaps for somebody applying to the 2-year MBA, we want examples from your workplace. For those of you who are coming out of school, lots of examples of that, perhaps from classes or group projects, or working with other people in clubs, or putting on conferences as an undergrad. So not worried about that at all. We also, though, want to assess, a little bit around your future interest. And so we ask you, at least I do in my interviews, tell me why today you believe you want to pursue an MBA. And for some people, they have very specific reasons. For other, it's more of, an anticipation of what they may want to do in the future, and they believe an MBA can help them. The way you carry yourself and conduct yourself in an interview, personal presence is something that we also greatly we value. And again, perhaps someone coming out of undergrad, someone coming out of 3 to 5 years of work, I'm going to say is a little bit more polished just from the work experience, is something that we can also sort of gauge and calibrate with people. It's a little bit hard, only because the caliber and quality of people who apply to this is pretty high. But in the end, it's also, sometimes in most cases, it's also pretty obvious as well. And this is a really important point, really, really, really important point. So getting into an MBA program, whether it be ours or anybody else's, straight out of undergrad with a promise of a seat in a class 2 to 5 years from now, is an amazing opportunity, amazing. And for those of you who perhaps don't get it, we don't even send a rejection letter, because we don't want that to be what this is about. This is, at this point in time, we don't feel we have enough evidence to make a positive decision. That's it. And so I want to encourage you to apply, and I don't want you to be discouraged if for some reason you don't get in. That's a really important point. And while for us, this is only our 2nd year, we will have data, I promise you, down the road that says, I don't know, but X number of people got into the MBA program this year straight in, and they were denied MBA early a few years ago. It will not be held against you in any way, shape, or form. Important point.
Great. Shifting gears a little bit, with obviously everything going on with COVID-19 and the pandemic, do you see any changes in terms of the class size, or how many students will admit early due to the pandemic?
No, not yet. Too soon to tell, really. Not at all.
All right. Any suggestions for folks who are rising seniors interested in the Master of Finance program who don't have a lot of quant in their background?
So it's a couple of things. One is the quant, and actually at this point in time, if you're really interested in it, our application deadline is in January. Take a couple of online classes. You know, how easy is that to do in this day and age? Is to take a couple of classes, number one, to demonstrate your interest, and number two, to demonstrate your ability and to develop the skills. Number two, as you're filling out your application, you need to demonstrate to us your passion for the field of finance. Why are you interested in finance? If your undergraduate major doesn't necessarily reflect it, were you involved in clubs, or did you participate in competitions that were finance-based? Where does this interest and this desire come from? Really important to us for this particular program. Internships, what did you do summers? Really important.
Great. So just two final questions here. First is around, again, back to sort of what counts as full-time work experience or not. So this may be one to follow up on, but if you take time off during your academic career, take a leave of absence to work full-time, but have not yet completed your degree, would that be counted as full-time work?
Yeah, it depends on the situation. I have to be honest, and I think Tommaso and Kayon will agree with me. You know, we set rules and guidelines for a variety of reasons. In the end, though, you're all individuals with your own individual situations. And if you feel like perhaps you have a personal situation that may not appear to meet our guidelines on paper, but you have extenuating circumstances, just reach out to us. We'll talk to you and we'll tell you.
Great. And then, well, one more question popped up, so we'll get to that first. For Masters of Business Analytics, in terms of the personal traits, is there anything different that you look for there as opposed to an MBA applicant?
Oh, business analytics versus MBA? Mm-hmm. No, well, so on business analytics, it's very much, a lot of emphasis is placed on academics, a lot. We want people with very strong quant skills, demonstrated strong quant skills, not just having taken the classes, but actually excelling in their quant classes.
Great. And our final question here from Lucas was about if there is a possibility to ask for a fee waiver for the application process. I'm happy to answer that. There are certain criteria that make you eligible for a fee waiver. One of those is attending events as part of this Identity Inclusion series this week. So just by being here and joining us for today's conversation, you will be eligible for a fee waiver. So you'll get an email at the end of the week with additional information about that, but it will be automatically applied if you choose to apply to any of these programs during the upcoming application cycle. And with that, I think that's all of our questions. So I'll pass it back to Dawna to wrap things up.
So I want to thank all of you very much for joining us. Hopefully you heard something today that resonated with you and made you want to learn more. And as both Tommaso and I have said, there's lots of opportunities to do so. You know, many of you may be just starting your journey in terms of looking at what's out there for programs, and we welcome that. Please do not hesitate to reach out and, you know, ask for a one-on-one conversation, because we're really happy to do that as well. With that, I want to wish each of you, as well as your families and friends, good health. And, you know, hopefully everybody is doing okay through these extremely, extremely challenging times. And I think that's it. So thank you all very, very much for joining us. And we look forward to receiving your applications, whether it be to one or several of these programs. Thank you.